Good morning. Welcome. Today is Sunday, January 25th. How's it going? How's everybody doing? I hope you're staying warm. The US is I guess we're getting a big storm. I say I guess because, first of all, I don't really trust the weather. And second of all, it is all south of where I live. My name is Angela. I am a front-end developer and software engineer in St. Paul, Minnesota. Oh, Monique Robinson is here. She lives in Baltimore, like Baltimore-ish area. I'm curious to know how things are going out on the East Coast. Malik Robinson is here. He's in Florida. I'm curious to know how things are looking in Florida. And of course, we have Rahul from Nepal. Welcome. Safwan, am I saying this correctly? Shalom, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everybody. And Rayhan is here. Welcome, Rayhan. How's it going? So happy to have everybody here on this cold Sunday morning. That was a shit show of an intro, but that's okay. What's happening here? Yeah, I'm getting a text message that I'm looking at. Okay, well, we'll just dispose with the pleasantries because I'm distracted. I'm also running a few minutes late, and the people who tend to watch the streams are people who have already been watching me. So maybe we can have one day where we don't do the whole where we don't have the whole thing, the spiel, right? Oh, and Malik says it's 85 to 86 over here and hating it. So, wow, interesting, because it was pretty mild the last time I asked you this question, maybe a week ago. East Coast has snow and sleet. Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I guess if you forced me to choose, I would take really, really cold temperatures over snow and sleet because at least if it's cold, it can still be sunny and dry outside. If it's below zero for like an entire day, that's obviously pretty dangerous and you can't really go anywhere or do anything. I mean, you can, but again, it's dangerous. If something happened and I like got into an accident, that happened to me when how long ago was that? That was in 2017. Heidi was just a baby. She was not even a year old, and it was January. It was like 6 o'clock at night, but of course it was pitch dark out, and I got into a car accident. I had a green light. Somebody ran a flashing yellow, and I T-boned them and totaled my car. Thank God Heidi was in her kennel in the back, so she was okay. But it was like 5 below zero when that happened. It was horrible. Being in an accident is bad enough. That was made it like 10 times worse to have it be that cold outside. It was awful. So, anyways, nobody cares. Let's just build the thing, should we? I'm distracted this morning because I've been up for a few hours and I was just doing something else, and I'm just distracted by the other thing that I'm working on today. So, but please don't mistake that for me not being happy to be here to work on this, because I am very excited to work on this. We got all of the CSS done yesterday. Let's actually pull up our designs, shall we? We're going to get the home page. We're going to start working on the home page today, like the header and the navigation, things like that. We'll see what we can get done on the body. And we'll take it from there. We also have, let's see here, move this up here. So this is the home page. This is a design that I did back in 2014. That's when I got my first job as a developer, and I was definitely trying to find my style, wishing that I was a better designer than I actually was. I was also a WordPress developer at the time, so this is kind of a very WordPress-y focused layout. And I'm not a WordPress designer anymore. I have no interest in building WordPress themes or WordPress websites, at least not from scratch. I'm fine helping with maintenance, but I don't like to do that from scratch anymore. Yeah, so we're just going to build this as a static website, and I guess it's okay to remind people if you're new. This is a static channel. So it's pretty much vanilla HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. That's intentional. I've been a front-end developer for 12 plus years. The last job that I had, we did everything with Vue. I was there for 7 years. I've built a couple full stack apps with Angular. I think WordPress actually gave me a great foundation in what it means to kind of be full stack. I certainly don't consider myself full stack. I'm very UI leaning front end. And on YouTube, I specifically decided to go with all vanilla. Number one, I genuinely enjoy it. But number two, it's a good niche. I mean, I think that dev YouTube is really saturated with frameworks and libraries. So my choice to do static isn't that I don't understand or don't know how to do more framework type work or builds. I mean, I'm not like a superstar at that stuff, but I know how to do those things. I find static to be a lot more interesting. So even though my channel is small and it's taking time to grow, I personally feel like I hit the YouTube lottery, because the reaction that I get from people is like, oh, you're not using frameworks and libraries. You're not, like, I think I use AI sparingly. And I'm doing pretty much everything vanilla. And I know that some people think, well, I know some people, I know what they're thinking because they type it into my chat. Things like, this would be so much faster if you were using Tailwind. Things like that, right? Although I haven't had that comment for a really long time. But so it's intentional. It's by design. It's because I enjoy it, and I firmly believe that if you really want to understand how the browser and the internet works, do a couple of vanilla projects. Build some static pages, manage your navigation on 4 different pages, and get a feel for that, especially when it comes to CSS. If you have a desire to learn and be better at CSS, try vanilla for 1 or 2 projects. You will start to understand specificity, cascade, inheritance. Those things are still important, and they will serve you even if you have a long, fruitful career in library framework land. The vanilla skills will still serve you. So, okay, so that's that. So we're not here because we're in denial about those other things, or what we, call modern. And yes, I understand those are modern approaches that are important, especially for getting a job, but this is important too. And taking a vanilla approach doesn't mean that it doesn't, I don't know how to say this. I don't even know what I'm really thinking. I'm starting to get a sense sometimes that maybe people might think that my choice to do vanilla is because I need help understanding frameworks more. I don't think that's the case. I just genuinely enjoy vanilla. So it's intentional. That's my point. It's intentional. So I think it is good to talk about it a little bit every stream, because the channel's growing. Every time I stream, I get new subscribers, though that's new people who are watching and figuring me out for the first time. And I also get comments where I'm like, did you even watch the video? Because I said the whole thing during the stream. So yeah, anyways, here we are. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our CSS today, which this is my favorite part, starting a new project and starting with CSS. My approach is that I always do, anytime, especially when I have a multi-page project, I do the entire homepage first. So we're getting the header, the footer, the main body, everything responsive, everything accessible. Treat the homepage like it is an independent project and then start working on your inner pages, that approach I think is a good approach. And that's what we're going to do here. So we're not going to worry about anything related to blog, contact, or page until the home page is completely done. And in my opinion, that makes it so much easier to just go in and finish up those remaining pages. I'm convinced that's why the last project we did, albeit it was not overly complex, but it was still a 4-page project that we got done in less than 2 weeks with what? 8 hours a week of work. I did not work on that project outside of the stream. So 8 hours, 16 hours, we could call it, yeah. So 16, we could call it 20 hours. We'll call it a 20-hour project because sometimes I go a little over 2 hours. So in 20 hours building a 4-page website, the reason that that goes as quickly as it does is because, in my opinion, you do the entire homepage first and then you can just bang out those inner pages. So there's that. Okay. Angela, time to work. Thank you, Malik. Very smooth progress plan. So, hey, tell me, tell me if I'm wrong. Prove me wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong, that that's not the best approach. Let's talk about it. So, okay, our header is not overly complex here. So here is our style. I guess we do have to do 1 or 2 things, don't we? Let's see here. And then I think we just need to go get our fonts. So and Rahul says people often underestimate the power of vanilla. Strong fundamentals make learning its libraries fast and easy. No need to recreate the wheel when you have strong foundation. I like it when people agree with me. You don't have to, but I like it. So there's that. Okay. No, actually, we don't want to download this. We want to link to it. So let's just have a nice chill day, writing some CSS, copied. And I'm just going to take this and put it up here. A comment. And oh, I guess we're going to have to do our color palette. I'm skipping a few steps here, aren't I? We also need normalize. Normalize is a browser reset. If you've never used a browser reset, every browser, it's not as bad as it used to be, but browsers do behave differently. Oh, you know what I want to do? Different browsers do behave differently, and Normalize has been out for more than a decade. It just helps smooths out those subtle browser differences. I used to, in the early days, I would take Normalize and I would just make bunches of changes, and I don't do that anymore. Now I just copy it in its entirety and I move on. All right, so we have our fonts, we have Normalize, we have style.css. We definitely want to color pick. We should just color pick this entire thing on Adobe Color, and then quickly we will check color contrast. Extract a theme. Oh, that's pretty. I like this yellow, but I think we need to do this. I still like this yellow, Oh, that's kind of nice. I mean, we're not really going to use that image, but I don't even think we're going to use this image. Really, I wanted these two blue colors. So I'm happy to see this this yellow, because I really like yellow. It's almost never accessible. It's useless. And we could do this F2 as kind of our off-white grayish, right? I like that. Do we want to find like a green or something? Oh, I kind of like that mossy green. Yeah, let's do that. And I also acknowledge that sometimes we spend a fair amount of time, or I spend a fair amount of time picking colors, and then I often don't use any of them. So I'm determined to make sure if this green is accessible, I will happily use this green for the link color. Yeah, and I'm curious to see the accessibility differences between these two shades of blue. So let's do it. Color contrast checker. Thank you. Malik Malik is very good about posting links to the site so people that are watching on the replay can use them. Thank you, Malik, for doing that. I appreciate it. Okay, here we go. So let's make sure that this is our, we'll just go ahead and use that. We can get a good idea here of what is accessible. Accessible. Large AA only. Okay, so on white, it is accessible. So as long as it's pure white, it is accessible. But that means we could never use this as a background. And I do kind of feel like we need that flexibility. Okay, let's try the yellow. Even though I already know. Yeah, fail. Yellow always fails. Interesting. This is the darker of the blues, and it doesn't pass for AAA normal text. It's still safe. We can still use it. But it leaves me a little concerned for this slightly lighter shade. Yeah, fail. Interesting. So this lighter blue does pass for graphical objects and user interface components. Which means we could still do, could we? Hang on. So if we did, if we stay in line with this, we really couldn't use the dark blue, right? We would have to make this the white or the grayish, whatever we want to call it. The copyright would have to be large text in order to be accessible. So let's remind ourselves, AA large text. I mean, it's like, it's just barely passing, which I don't know if that's it. I just don't know if that's like good enough. What if we did blue and green at the bottom? Because we know that the green will work with white. So what if we made the bottom part of the footer? This is one of the drawbacks to pulling out old designs, isn't it? So with white, see, and even that is, it passes for normal text, but that F2, which I really like, fail. Okay, so if our background is so we know that this section's going to be fine, right? This darker blue part of the footer that has the yeah, we know, so we know that the darker blue will be fine. So, okay. If it only, this is better than the bare minimum, right? Normal text, double A, everything else passes. So if we're using the dark blue, the text, or if the dark blue is the text, then it has to be white. It has to be the pure white. I think it is not going to be okay to use this grayish color, which is a bummer because I like it. Kind of softens things. Oh, no, it is okay on the dark blue. It's just not okay on the lightest blue. I feel like I'm getting confused. Maybe, I mean, can we color pick something slightly darker? Maybe, okay, so let's go ahead and just define these colors, and then in the browser, let's see if we can adjust that blue and just go from there, because this is taking too long. This is taking too long. We're going to make sure it's accessible. So, so I'm just going to say light blue. Well, I'm just going to say blue and dark blue. Blue. And then we'll say dark blue. And then we'll say yellow. I don't know if we're going to end up using that yellow or not. It doesn't pass for anything. Should probably be better at looking for ways to use accent colors. This is one of the drawbacks of not really being a designer. And then we'll just call this light gray. And then we'll do black, which I always do is 222. And then we need to do a white. And then I usually do, oh, one moment. And what are you making? I am late. We are making a new website. This is our project. This is an old design from 2014. Let's also do a medium gray. There's our color palette. Let's see if we actually use all the colors. Okay, what else do we need? Anything? We have Normalize, we have our style sheet, we have our fonts, we have our markup, we have our colors. What else do we need? And then here's our local environment. We got ChatGPT on standby if we need help with anything. Let's get started. Okay. So body styles. I always say padding 0. Oh, actually we need to do the HTML first. Forgive me. So HTML, box sizing border box. And then I generally do a wildcard for before and after, and just a general wildcard. We'll also do box sizing, border box. Now we'll do the body. And I'm going to say padding 0, margin 0. And then our fonts are Open Sans. So I'm just going to copy this. And font weight, default font weight is going to be 400. And I like to set the line height to 1.65. Line height is a multiple of your font size. It will accept a pixel value, but it's meant to be unitless. Color, we're going to set the default color to black. What else do we need? Set the background color to white. Make sure you always set a background color. What else? Padding, margin, font, line height, color. Oh, probably font size. I usually say 100%, and then we'll go ahead and use one rem moving forward. And yeah, I think that's it. Let's do just a couple global styles. These are styles that I like to use that work for me. And this will sort of evolve as we're building. Right off the gate, right out of the gate, I'm going to make sure that all figures have margin 0 because the browser adds a lot of margin by default. And then for images by default are inline elements. I'm going to change the display to block. Makes it a lot easier to style. And I'm going to say max width 100% and height auto, and that makes them responsive. Buttons. Buttons by default are display inline block, so they're very easy to style, but I do like to take off the padding. You could say appearance none. This is how I like to do it. I say padding 0, border none, background color. Background color is transparent. And then what else? SVGs. SVGs by default are display inline. I personally think if you don't change the display of an SVG, they're very difficult to style. So I'm going to change the display to, I'm going to change it to inline block. I used to change it to block, but I've been doing inline block lately, and I haven't had any problems with that. It's actually been kind of helpful. I'm going to set the width to 3 rems by 3 rems, and that's because without a width and a height, they can just take up the entire space. So if I take these out, we'll see if you can tell the difference here. Well, here, this is a great example of an SVG that is just given all the leg room, all the space, just is taking up all the space. So if we just go ahead and globally set a width and a height of 3, it just sort of reins them in. So, which is very helpful. The other thing that I like to do is that SVGs can either have fill or stroke. Sometimes they have both. It's usually just one or the other. If you're not sure which yours have, this is what I do. I'm just going to do fill red and stroke blue. Now we can see which is which. And so you can see here that our menu is stroke. And this is our close button, which means I probably forgot to remove the inline style. So this is another good test. And then all of our social media icons have fill. So now you know which property to use when you're styling with CSS. So let's look at our SVG for the close button. I probably forgot to take out the inline style right here. So we see fill none and stroke current color. We'll take out the current color. Don't take out the entire attribute, just take out the value. Now it's blue, and you can see now you're going to have complete control over your SVGs to style them any color that you want. So if you're having trouble styling your SVGs, the two things that you can do are take out any inline attributes setting a color and change it from display inline to either inline block or block, and you will have, it will be just a million times easier for you to style your SVGs. That is my experience. So, okay, what else do we want to do here? Let's decide what our links should be. So our anchor elements, we said the green works, right? We said the green works on a white background. I kind of want to use the green. So let's set the color for the green, for the links to green. I'll double check it in the browser because I have short-term memory issues. And then we'll say text, decoration, color will also be green. So we'll make sure everything has a nice little underline. And then we'll say text, decoration thickness. We'll go with 2 pixels. And then text, underline, offset. I usually do, let's do 5 pixels. We can adjust that if we need to. And then the focus hover active is going to be that when you focus, hover, or the link is active, the underline will go away. So that's going to be our state change. So we'll do anchor, focus, anchor, hover, anchor, active, and it should be in that order: focus, hover, active. We'll say text, decoration, color, transparent. And then let's give that an animation. So we'll say transition, text, decoration, color. I'm gonna use 300 milliseconds. That's just timing that I like. I think that works. And ease in out. You can use whatever you like. So now you can see there, and the navigation links are going to change, but we can at least test that this is working. So there we go. So there's our focus, hover. Well, this is the hover, right? But we have a nice transition. I like it. It works. What else? And then I think we need a screen reader only class. This is CSS that will hide, well, I was going to say hide text. It'll hide anything that you want to be accessible by a screen reader but visually hidden. I never remember what this is. So I'm going to cheat. I'm going to go look at my last repo and just copy it from there. Here's our last project. And then also let's just see if there's anything else here that we forgot that we might want to include. Oh yeah, we'll add a cursor pointer. We'll do styles for our headers. Here is our screen reader only CSS. Don't worry about going back and looking at your old repositories. If you know you've done something before and you can't remember, that's like literally why Git exists. It's for you to save versions of your work and use it as notes. Go back and look, see what you did. And then we'll also do H1, H2, H3. We only have one font, so we're not setting a new font for the headings, but I would like to reset the line height. I like to have, so we set the line height to be 1.65 for normal text. I don't like it that big for headings, so I usually reset this to 1.25. And then I also like to take the margin off of the top. So let's just redo this so we've got 1 rem of margin on the bottom of our headings. What else? I almost always end up redoing styles for paragraphs, but I don't know. I'm not gonna. Do we want to do that now? This worked so well for the paragraphs on our last site. Should we do this again? Make it just a little bit bigger. It worked really well, didn't it? Kind of want to. If we don't like it, we can take it out. We don't have to do it. Silence for 24 hours is here. Hello, welcome. So we go back to let's keep going. We'll just keep going. We'll see how it goes. We can change it. We can do anything we want. Anything we want. Okay. This is a very good starting point. So let's just jump into our header. So I think that this header should be sticky. What do we think? I love a good sticky header. So we'll just say header, position sticky. I'm going to say width, 100%. Background color, we'll give it some RGBA. We want it to be white, so we'll say 255, 255, 255 with an alpha transparency of about 10%. It's not going to look like much right now. Is it even sticky at all? Sticky. It's not. Do I have to put, do I forget to do this every time? You sticky. Oh, There we go. And then it probably needs a little Z index. Where's our background color? There. Oh, it's there. It's just not dark enough. There we go. So maybe 75%. Yeah, 10% is probably pretty light. Maybe 80%. There, that's okay. And then on our header, let's make sure that we're hiding our buttons. We don't need these right now. So we can just display none them. That is perfectly fine. The whole point of display none is to not show it and not make it accessible by a screen reader. So we'll use the menu button class, which we have on both buttons. And we're just going to say display none. And then when it's mobile, we'll use a media query to show them. That is exactly what display none is for. So now we are hiding those buttons. We can just work now with this navigation and logo. It's a text-based logo. Also, let's make sure that this is a link, because generally we like to make sure that things are linked, right? We like to make sure that the logo is always linked back to the home page. So that's going to make that look like a link, and then our styles will cover those. Okay, so I'm just going to make the header display flex. That's going to be honestly the quickest way to do this. Display flex, flex flow. We want a row with no wrap. Justify content, space between, which will put the first item and the last item all the way up against the edges. There are only 2 items, but if there were more items, then they would be evenly distributed. Perfect. We may want to put a wrap around all of this. I usually forget the wrap. So let's do a div with the class of wrap. And then let's define a container, which means that we will want to put these here instead. And Silence for 24 Hours has a good question. How about declaring the CSS values in style.css and using them by class name, kind of like personal Bootstrap classes? Yeah. I mean, I do that a little bit, not a lot. So I'm going to do that here with the wrap. So for example, we'll say max width 75 rems, margin 0, auto. Yeah, I mean, you could definitely do that. So if that is you, it would be essentially kind of doing it backwards, right? So I'm trying to articulate my thoughts, because you asked a good question. This is just how, I don't know how to explain why I'm not doing it like that, except that I write custom CSS for every style. The CSS is determined by the design, not as a framework. Bootstrap is so So if we're talking about Bootstrap specifically, yeah, you're talking about basically making a library. So I actually am working on not exactly a library, but more of like I'm calling it a reset because I'm not sure what else to call it, because I want people to do a bit more than they're doing. I want people to understand more than I think they understand, but I also want to help people with what I've learned over the years. So I am working on something kind of like that. I don't have a desire to build something like Bootstrap because I've never personally used Bootstrap. I've always sort of like philosophically been against libraries and frameworks, even though I understand their usefulness and their importance. I've just, please understand where I'm coming from, that I genuinely love writing CSS and I enjoy the process of writing custom CSS for every design that I take on. Literally, that's why I do it. It's because I enjoy it and I want more people to love it as much as I do. So, yeah, I mean, so I think I'm reading into your question and trying to explain why I'm not doing that here when probably you're asking just a more general question like, hey, why don't you make your own library? And I'm kind of thinking about, okay, good. Can you tell when I get flustered and I'm like trying to think of a really good answer? So, yeah, I mean, I am kind of working on something right now. It's the thing that I'm working on though is things like this, where I help people, where I explain buttons or I explain SVGs or I explain a good way to handle fonts, like your main paragraph font sizes. I'm doing it more from an educational perspective because I want it to be easier for people to style things, and I want to help people understand the things that I've learned. And I think that I can explain it in a way, I hope. So, yeah, okay, you said you got the point. Okay, carrying on. So we do have a wrap. And so I use wraps a lot just to kind of contain things and then center those containers on the page. I used to put all of my flex properties in the wrap and I stopped doing that. So you're going to see me do separate flex or grid depending on what I think is appropriate. And this is an approach that I like, that works for me. So you can see now that that header is centered. So now let's get our navigation in order. So it's just the navigation class. And I'm going to use, well, actually, it's the UL. We want to do main nav because that's the container. So main nav, I'm going to do Flexbox again because it's just so easy. And it's going to be a row, no wrap. Justify content. I'm going to say flex end, even though I'm not sure if it matters. Align items, center, and we'll give this a gap of 1 rem. Might need a little more. Oh, and I think we're also going to want to say padding 0, margin 0, because the browser gives unordered and ordered lists a lot of extra space. And then list style type none to remove those bullets. And then let's style how we want our links to look, which I just made these blue links. So we can do that. So all of the normal page links on the page are going to be green with an underline, but the navigation will be blue. I love it. Navigation, anchor element. Let's just change the color to dark blue. And then we'll say, we're going to do the opposite. Text decoration, color, transparent. And then for our focus hover active, I'm going to change the text decoration color to, whoops, text emphasis color. To transparent. Oh, wait a second. To blue. There we go. And if we're going to make the paragraphs this size, I think we're going to have to make the links that size too. And then let's fix our primary logo. Target the anchor element. We'll make the color dark blue. And the text decoration color will be transparent, but we want the primary logo focus hover active to have the underline. Primary logo, anchor, focus, hover, active, text decoration, color, dark blue. And we need to make that a lot bigger. So font size, that looks a little big. You might want to make this fixed, not sticky, so it has that overlap. In which case, we would not need position relative on the body. There we go. And then we need to take the margin off. So we'll just say margin 0. Why does it have so much line height? Oh, why do we still have, oh. And then I think we just need some padding on our header. So maybe 1 rem all the way around. Yeah, there we go. And I think a little text shadow. Give it a little lift, or box shadow rather. So I'm going to say 1 pixel, no, I'm going to say 0 on the x-axis, 1 pixel on the y-axis, 1 pixel blur, 1 pixel spread, and then we'll say RGBA 0, 0, 0, 0 for black, and then 10% alpha transparency. Now it's got a little, just a little hint of a shadow. So when we're over a white part, you can see. There we go. There's our header. Let's, I mean, I kind of want to make these uppercase and spread them out a little bit. Well, for sure they need to be a little more spread out. Yeah. And Krishna says, which is difficult, Tailwind or vanilla? Well, I think it depends on the person. I think it's a totally, I'm not here to say one is harder than the other. Whichever one is easier for you is easier. Whichever one is difficult is more difficult. I will say this, if you have a desire to be better at it, then you will practice and you'll get better at it, right? I don't think vanilla is difficult at all. I enjoy it very much. So there's that. Okay. Let's get this background image. So we're basically done with the desktop version of the header. I would like to go in and roughly get the rest of this page, the layout implemented, and then we'll come back up and we'll make sure that header's nice and responsive, along with the rest of the page, of course. So, okay, so we've got, this is our hero section with a figure for that background image. So I'm going to start a new section. This is the hero, and we have a distinct hero class, so I'm going to use that. And I think what we learned last time is that it was better to give the shape of this container to the outermost container, right? So the hero is going to be width 100%, height auto, and then I'm going to give this an aspect ratio of 16:8. And you'll see here in a minute why I like to do that. And this should also be position relative. And then we can go ahead and do the hero figure. And I'm going to say position absolute. I guess we could just say inset. Inset 0. Width 100%, height 100%, and inset is shorthand for top, left, top, bottom, left, right. And then we have that hero image. I'm going to say width 100%, height. No, it does. I think this also needs to be 100%. And then position, object fit. Object fit is going to be cover. And I really like 16:8 because 16:9 is going to kind of push it down beneath the fold, and I like to just have a little bit showing here. Also, 16:9 is the size of the monitor. It's generally, but it doesn't account for anything else that you have going on up here, right? From the browser or even just the operating system. 16:8, in my opinion, is a good ratio. I like it. Let's make sure now that our wrap, we can still see this. So I think we're going to have to give our figure some z-index here. I think -1. Yeah, oh, there it is. It's up at the top. So we have to position it, but you can see it right here. Did I miss that before? I don't think so. That sizes really well. So if we take that z-index off, no, that goes away. So we do need that z-index right there. Okay, so now we want to take this wrap and position it in the middle. And I'm working from memory. because I've solved this problem a couple of times now. But I haven't solved it enough times that I have it committed to memory. So let's see if I can remember the best way to do this. Do I want, it's Flexbox. I can't remember if it goes on the parent or the child. I think it goes on the parent. Display flex flow. Okay, I'm just gonna look. We just did it last time. I'm just gonna look. Eventually I'm gonna get it memorized. Yep, it goes on the parent. So it's display flex wrap, and then we can do align content. Yeah, and this is for everything inside the container. So flex wrap, and then align content center. Oh, I put it in the wrong spot. Goes right. There we go, right in the middle. And really it just sort of takes the shape of the content. So we don't have, I mean, we do have, it's a wrap, so it's got, oh, that's interesting. So this, the max width, isn't really impacting this at all. The shape of this container right here. The margin is what's centering it. So it's centering it. So this align content is centering it on the y-axis, not the x-axis. So the margin 0 auto is centering it on the x-axis, and the container basically takes up the shape of the content, which is helpful. So we could not have this here. We could even just not even have that class there. So we could just say hero content. Now it's off. It's still centered on the y-axis, but it's all the way over to the left. So we could do hero content and then just margin 0 auto. There we go. And this is using the blue background. So we'll give this a color of white. We'll give this a background color. I don't know if this is going to be accessible. We'll find out. What is that dark blue? It's going to take these right here, copy them. And then alpha transparency, I don't know, 50%. Why is the color yellow? Oh. White. And then let's give this, I'll just say text align center. We'll give it some padding. Lots of padding. Like what, 3 rems? And then we've got the secondary heading. So this is really big. Let's definitely clamp those. Font size, clamp. So maybe on mobile it would be 2 rems. Maybe on desktop it would be 6 rems. I have no idea, I'm guessing. And then maybe the in-between size would be like 8 VW, viewport width. Definitely need to pull down that font weight. Much lighter. And then also let's make this 8. Yes, I love it. It sizes really well, actually. But do you see how well this container sizes? So aspect ratio, what I've sort of discovered using aspect ratio is that it's almost like a minimum, right? Because if the container, if whatever is inside that container disrupts the aspect ratio, it doesn't cause like overflow issues or break a layout. It will just adapt to whatever is inside the container, because this is not 16:8. It's adapting to what's happening in the container. I think that's really cool. That's the thing I love about aspect ratio. So once we get down to mobile, like once we get down to about here, that's about 9, we'll call it 960. I use that as a media query all the time. So once this gets down to like 960, let's change that header from fixed to sticky, and then the hero is going to just pop right down beneath the header, and we're not going to have this overlap right there. So let's find our header. So then we'll say header. We're going to just change the position to sticky. We'll get the same effect, but it puts it back in flow. Fixed takes it out of the flow. There, look at that. But we still have that sticky. But we also need to make sure that our header has, I think, just some z-index, right? Which we can just go ahead and put up here. I think 1 is probably fine. There we go. Beautiful. Nice. And then let's, we can also clamp this padding. So it's this right here. Let's just clamp that. So we know on desktop that we want that to be 3 rems. Maybe mobile, usually 1 rem is fine. And then maybe 4 VW, viewport width, for that middle. Let's see how it goes. So keep an eye right down here on the right. There we go. We switched to 4 VW. That's like perfect. Perfect. And we already have the clamp for our paragraph text. So let's just do something kind of specific now for this this phonic class, which is kind of a unique class. We can clamp this too. Whoops. So maybe on desktop, this would be, so if this is 8 rems, maybe that's 4. And if this is 2 rems on mobile, maybe this is 1.25. So a good in-between size could be 5 VW. We definitely want to change the font weight. I think it should be like 1.5 for mobile, because the font weight makes it look a lot smaller. Yeah, I think that's okay. And then we are going to need a media query here to remove that margin. That's fine. When do we want to remove it? Maybe there's 500. Maybe just to be safe, we remove that margin at 600. I don't think you can clamp down to 0. Can you? Can you just, well, not for a font size. Maybe you can fake it though. Margin, clamp. So I know I want it to be but we would have to do this for all 4 values. So this would be the top and the bottom, and then this would be the left and the right. Yeah, there's no error. That works. New trick unlocked. Look at that. I love it. So I have a question. You can also make the navbar responsing just using CSS and media queries. Are you asking me a question or are you telling me? I'm not sure which it is. So, if it's a question, then the answer is yes. You can absolutely make the navbar responsive using CSS and media queries. But you have to have a click. There has to be a button to display the menu, and for that you do have to use JavaScript. I know that there are CSS only solutions using like a pseudo, I don't remember if it's a pseudo class or a pseudo element. It's the target. That is not accessible. In my opinion, it's a hack. It relies on like a hashtag on the URL. I've done it before. I don't think it's not a best practice, and it's not accessible, although it is technically a CSS only solution to responsive nav. You do need JavaScript or jQuery or whatever. You have to have a click event on a button. That is the accessible user experience best practice. So that's what I do. But everything else, it's literally a click event where you add a class to the body, and then everything else is handled with CSS and media queries. So that is my approach. So I think that my blue is darker, but I was not accessibility focused back when I designed this, and I think we should make this text probably a lot bigger, right? Yeah, so we can make this text a little bigger too. So maybe, let's just borrow this. So maybe we want this to be 2 rems, and then this could be 3, and then this could just be 1. But I feel like we also need the font weight to be adjusted. I think this should be a lot bigger. Actually, that container is always going to adjust to the size of the content. So let's just put a max width of a character count. So let's just say max width 60 ch. I think that's going to help. There we go. Do we need to make it bigger? Yeah. How does that look? Little bit of overlap there. We can adjust our media query if we need to, because we've made changes, right? I think also we could change the line height here. That would help us. That would buy us a little time. Yeah, that made a huge difference. Unless we want to change our media query to exactly when it's like 1270, 1280 pixels. I think it's okay. I think it still holds up. Okay, let's just sort of roughly get in our grid. And then well, let's keep going on the rest of the page. I want to try to get just some rough layout styles in here. So Tuesday, when we come back, we can just dive right into the header and the nav bar. That is what I want to do. So, okay, but hero done. I'm feeling very confident about the hero. That is by far the easiest. I'm getting better at doing heroes. Like, I feel like I've started to really come up with a good system for handling heroes that kind of works here. So, and this is what's crazy about this is the exact same structure as this. Okay, here's what I love about front-end development. I sometimes have these moments where I'm like, Angela, you are a one-trick pony. Structurally, HTML-wise, yes, that is literally a true statement. My markup structurally does not deviate. And I'm not here to say that this is like the best design in the world or that you should take notes on my design skills, but for having almost identical structures, these look completely different, but they use the same structure. That is, to me, the cool thing about how powerful vanilla CSS is. That you can, it's a way of making your HTML and your CSS do the work of making your layout or your markup modular, for lack of a better term. Because I tend to write the same HTML for every single project. That doesn't mean that it needs to look the same. Structurally, it can be the same. It's the CSS that makes it look how it looks, right? That to me is just so powerful. I don't know. I kind of get amazed by that over and over again every time I work on something new. So there, because we can't be truly modular, or we can't turn static designs into components, but you can still structure your CSS and your markup in a way that makes things feel very component ready to me, in my opinion. So yeah, it's just a good little foundation. So okie dokie. Well, what's next? Okay, so next is this grid. And I'm going to give this section another class called grid, and we're literally going to use grid. So we'll call this the grid section. And it's already got the wrap, which is a max width of 75 rems, and then margin 0 auto, so you can see everything's centered here. And we should probably swap out some of these images too. And our CSS grid container is the wrap. So we'll do grid, wrap, display grid, grid, template columns, repeat, 3, 1 FR. And then we'll give this some gap. That's a lot of gap. Let's just start with 2. Oops. And then let's make sure that our sections, I kind of want to make sure that all of the sections have padding. I feel like that may end up having an impact on our hero, but let's just roll with it and see how it goes. So padding, I'm going to do 3 rems on the top and bottom, and 1 rem on the left and right. Does that have any impact on our header? A little, yeah. We're going to want to change that for, well, we'll have to come back and refine our hero. Although maybe that's okay. We're going to want to, we'll refine it. There's always refining to the responsiveness. And Rahul is saying, I have to watch Grid and Flex standalone video on Free Code Camp YouTube channel. Never got to it. Yeah, I did the, I learned Flexbox from the Chris Coyer CSS Tricks Flexbox article that he wrote. And I learned Grid from Traversy Media. He had a really good grid tutorial. But yeah, I enjoy grid. It works well. Okay. And then for each of our articles, there's like a container, and this is box shadow. This might look like a border, but it's actually, there's a box shadow on the entire item. So for our articles, I'm going to give this, we're going to give it a background color of white. A box shadow, and it'll be RGB, well, yep, RGBA, and it's going to be 0, 0, 0 for black, and 10% alpha transparency. We need to do 1 pixel on the x-axis, 1 pixel on the y-axis, 1 pixel blur, 1 pixel spread. We can adjust that if we need to. So you can see now that this has a box shadow. And then the H3 is right up against the figure. So we'll want to give, so this is the article tertiary heading. I'm going to say margin 0, and then we should give this some padding, maybe 2 rems all the way around. And then we can also text align center. And then this is definitely a lighter font weight. It's also much larger. So maybe a font size, and we can clamp this again. Look at us using clamp. I feel like this is very similar to this up here. So what was that? It was this right here. And maybe a little less, maybe just a little less padding. A little less padding, and I do think this is a little too big. There we go. And then let's make that responsive. So where do we want to start adjusting our grid? I think 1024, like right there, right in there. And we'll do a couple media queries. So we'll go from 3 to 2 to 1. So I'm going to say at media, max width, 1024 pixels. And we'll say grid, template columns. Whoops, that's not what I wanted. We'll say 2, 1 FR. Wait a second. Oops. Thank you for the reminder, Malik. We'll add border radius today. I genuinely forgot. I genuinely forgot. So we'll do it now. I promise. Let me finish this last media query. All right. And then we want to do this at I think we hold up to 600. We can drop that down at 600 pixels. And then let's also change the gap. Well, this would be, no, we would still want 1 rem of gap. Do we want to change it though? Up here? Oops. Yes, I like it. I like it. Yeah, let's work on these images. Let's work on these images. So right now the images are all the same. So we haven't styled these images at all, and it is a good idea to style these. I'm going to go with a 16:9 ratio. So these would be the article, figure, image. I'll do this right here. Article, figure, and we'll say width 100%, height, it's height auto, and then aspect ratio, we'll say 16:9. And then we'll say article, image, width 100%, height 100%, and then object, fit, cover. Now you're not going to notice anything different here, so we'll also go in and put in our other images, because we have a good variety of images that are landscape and portrait. So we're going to do this, and then I think we can just say, we do this, I hardly ever do border radius. I think we can just do it right on the image. Border radius 10 pixels. Oh, the horror. Okay, but we actually just want to do it on the top, left and right, not all the way around. I'm going to put it right here. Border radius top left. Border top left radius 10 pixels. Border top right radius 10 pixels. There. So it's just the image. It wouldn't be these right here, part of the container. I hope that's okay. How about we create a bento grid for the cards? Well, we could do a bento grid, but I don't have one designed. This is how I work. You're going to have to show me a mock-up, especially for a bento grid and for CSS grid, because I use basic CSS grid. So in order for me to do that, I can do a lot of things from memory or just use my own imagination, but for a bento grid, I'm going to need a mock-up. I won't be able to just on the fly do a bento grid. So if somebody wants to design one and send one to me, I'd be happy to do it. But I won't be able to do that today. Let's put it on our list though. Let's do it. Bento grid. Because I think there are opportunities to do a bento grid, maybe on one of these inner pages. Maybe we could do a bento grid somewhere here. Yes? Oh, and Malika's saying we could also shorthand the border radius. Well, it's usually, dude, yeah, it does go, there we go. And we can add more border radius too. All right. All right, what's next? So next, we have our footer and our subscribe. And I am going to add, we did put in a name, email, and a button. So we'll just call this subscribe. It's kind of like our top footer. Oh, I feel like 10 is a wild border radius. I mean, well, I mean, I don't know if I can do 15. Oh, and you know, we're going to have to do that on, yeah, because we've got a box shadow there. So really we have to do this on the figure. I'll do 15. I'm fine with 15. I mean, it's not my first choice, but border radius isn't my first choice. And I gave you this power. I gave you this power. So we're going to do this here on the figure. And then we also have to say overflow hidden in order for that to work. Oh, come on. Oh, you know why it's doing it? It's still showing the box shadow. I don't like that. You see the box shadow here in the corner? Hopefully you can see that. Why wouldn't that be hidden with overflow? What if we changed the box shadow to only be on the y-axis, not the x-axis? Yeah, you can still see it. Should we just put it on the H? Should we just put it on the H3? If this was a border instead of a box shadow, would it follow? So if this was a border instead, would it follow that curve? Border one. Solid. No, it doesn't. Oh, that's right. Drop shadow. Yeah, we just did this like last weekend, didn't we? MDN drop shadow. Thank you for reminding me. Whoops, drop. MDN. Jesus. There we go. So this is the filter drop shadow. Yeah, let's try this. And does it take all of those values? It just takes 3. So I'm guessing this is X, Y, and like spread. So we've got X, Y. A third value is specified. It is interpreted as standard deviation, which is the value of the standard deviation to the Gaussian blur. So blur. It's basically blur. Okay, so this would be filter, drop shadow, filter, like that. Oh no, this is in. What did I get wrong? Hang on, don't tell me. Can I not use RGBA? Let me know if you can see me. I think we went offline for a minute. Okay, must have just been me. Okay, why is it not working? Drop? Do I have the syntax wrong? What's going on here? Three length values and a color. Is it because, oh, wait a second. I'm missing the R. Yeah, but you should be able to just put in a color, right? That's not working. The browser is not taking it. It's like not giving me an error. Well, filter, drop shadow, parentheses. I have 3 values. I have a color. It's not because of grid. Is it because of the overflow hidden? No. The border radius? No. The background color? No. It's an input image though. So the drop shadow applies a drop shadow effect to the input image. So that's why I think it doesn't work on, note this function is somewhat similar to the box shadow property. The box shadow property creates a rectangular shadow behind an element's entire box, while the drop shadow filter function creates a shadow that conforms to the shape alpha channel of the image itself. So I don't think this works on, I don't think this works on elements. I think it only works on images. So if we put this, I bet if I put this on the image, it would be fine. No, it's not working there either. I mean, we did this like 2 weeks ago. Space between drop shadow and parentheses. Oh my God. Okay. Thank you, Rahul. All right, it does work. It does work on an element. Now let's get our RGBA back in there. I mean, it's the best mistake to make, right? And it's not, we still have, you can still see the corner. You can still see the corner. Yeah. Plus, I don't like the blur. So we still have a corner up there. Okay, that's fine. We'll leave our rounded corners on, and maybe we can just put, I'll just put like a light border around this H3. It's going to add it to the outside, but that's fine. We can fake it with the padding. So let's just add a light border to this H3. So we're going to do this. We're just going to say border. Can we do the same thing? Top. I think we can just do the same thing. Top clockwise, right? 0 on the top. 1 pixel on the left, 1 pixel on the right. No, top, right, bottom, left. 1 pixel. So that would be 2 pixels. So we would want to recalculate this to be 1 rem minus 2 pixels. So that border doesn't land outside of the box. Oh, that doesn't work. Border. Let's just do this. 1 pixel solid try our light gray. Then we'll say border top, none. There. And it's not out. I really don't like adding, when you have to add border to something. Stop. When you have to add border to something, it always lands on the outside of the box model. So this is perfect because it still lines up. If we didn't do that, it would be just slightly outside of the image, but this is still nice and in line. We still have the effect of having this container, and then we have our nice rounded corners. So this works for me. I'm very happy with this. And Malik says, since the shadow is on the container, it won't take into account the image's border radius, right? Yeah, the shadow's on the article, the grandparent container. That's why it doesn't care about the border radius of the figure or the image. It doesn't care about either one. But what if we, had put, oh, you have a point. Okay, wait a second, you have a point. Maybe the border radius needs to be on the article, not the figure. Yeah, that kind of makes sense now. Okay, hang on. So let's say, yeah, that's why the corners are showing. So why not have the border radius on the container? Well, because I didn't think of it. Yeah, I didn't think of it. That's why you're here. That's your job, to help me remember to do things like that. Okay, well, let's just test it. Let's just go ahead and test it. We'll put this on. Nope, wrong thing. We'll take both of these and we'll put them on the article. And then I think we do have to still have this, but we can also put this on the article. We don't need to recalculate this padding. And we don't need this. I'm going to put this down at the bottom. Yeah, it appears that worked. So now we have a border that does go all the way around. Of course you can have a border radius and have the border respect it. Of course you can. I know this. Temporary insanity. Temporary insanity. Yes. Malik and Rahul, you guys are on it. You're keeping me focused. We're fighting the good fight. All right. I like it. Okay. Let's work on our subscribe. So here's our footer. We're calling this the top footer. I guess we could also call this subscribe. That seems more semantic. Yes, multiple eyes are always a good thing. Agreed. So I'm also going to give our form element Well, I was going to say I was going to give it, yeah, we'll also give our form element a class of wrap. So it'll get the width that we've already decided. We want the subscribe background color to be, is it dark blue or light blue? Dark blue. We want the color to be white. We need lots of padding. So maybe we want to, instead of giving this padding, maybe we want to give this section an aspect ratio also. Why not? So we'll say width 100%, height, auto, and then what would we say the aspect ratio would be? Maybe I'm thinking like, so if we cut, so if the hero is 16:8, maybe we would want like 16:4, which would be 4:1. Yeah, I like that. I like that. And then maybe we would do the exact same thing to center this form that we did for the hero. Oh, that's interesting. So display flex wrap, align content, center. Wow. Look at that. That is magical. Whoops, it's not what I wanted. Three to one might be better. But maybe a media query would be good too. We'll keep it at 4:1. Okay, so let's style our form. Whoops. Oh, and it's been about 2 hours. Well, what do we think? Okay, since we're like literally ready to jump into something brand new, which is the form styles, maybe this is where we can call it a day. What do we think? I think this is a very respectable amount of work for 2 hours. So I think tomorrow we can come back. We'll finish up this form. We'll get the rest of this footer in place. We'll make sure that our header is nice and responsive. And then we'll refine our styles. We can do QA. We'll check mobile. And then we can dive into those inner pages. Let's go ahead and push this up to GitHub. I think this is very respectable for the 2 hours of work. Styles for the homepage layout. And Rahul is saying the reason for using aspect ratio instead of padding top and bottom. Something different, something new. Literally, that's it. I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer. I usually use padding I am choosing to do something a little different just to see how it goes. Why not? Right? And Silence 24 Hours says sticky header. I'm not sure if that's a question or a comment. There's no question mark, so I'll go with comment and I will just say confirm. It is a sticky header. Yes, Monique, thank you for saying that. Please do me a favor. If you liked what you saw, go ahead and hit the thumbs up button, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. It helps the algorithm. It helps push this content out to more people who might be interested in this type of thing. We are growing slowly but steadily. I mean, who wouldn't want to wake up in the morning and see 10,000 new subscribers? I just don't think that's going to happen because I think this is incredibly niche. And, you know, every time I stream or anytime I put out any video, I always get this nice little steady trickle of new subscribers, which is, it's cool to see. So especially now that I'm streaming 4 days a week, it's really helping me with my watch time and just, yeah, grow subs. So, and then, you know, we're finishing projects twice as fast, which means that my library of content is growing twice as fast. The last couple of projects that we did, we got done in like less than a couple of weeks, which is incredible. I mean, I'm loving it. So, yeah, it's happening. It happens when it happens, right? Keeps the layout fixed and structured in all types of screen sizes. Yeah, I do. I think we're going to have to change the aspect ratio in a media query because I do kind of feel like once we get down to about here, although once the form is styled, we know that aspect ratio is like a min, right? That's how I interpret it. It is still always going to respond to whatever is inside the container. So once we get that form styled, I think it'll hold up really well, and there's nothing stopping us from adding padding to the form itself, but just keeping this structurally kind of nice and responsive. It's almost like aspect ratio to me is almost like clamp for, it's not the same thing at all. I don't know. It's just, it works really well in a lot of situations. So yeah, it's complex, right? It's complex. Sorry, hit the wrong button. Everybody, thank you for hanging out with me this weekend. I appreciate it so much. Yeah, works like flex wrap. Works like a flex wrap. I like aspect ratio. The aspect ratio is something that a subscriber taught me like a year ago. I remember very clearly he was in the chat and he was like, "What about the aspect ratio?" And I was like, "Oh yeah." And I thought he was asking something else, and he's like, "No, literally there is something called aspect ratio." And once I started using it, I really like it. So, thank you. I appreciate that. Please, everybody, say thank you to Malik and Rahul. Monique was also here. Silence for 24 Hours was here. Who else did we have? Krishna was here. Rayhan was here. Safwan was here. He was the first person in the chat. He, she, they, first person in the chat. Yeah. Yeah, Rahul, Monique, and Malik have the stream locked down. They are very quick. Although we don't have too much trouble in the chat. I mean, we've had a few times where, like, I was experimenting with going live during the day and I had the chat open. I didn't have it locked down like I do now. And they were very quick to catch troublemakers. And it's shocking how easily people can cause trouble. So, in a funny way. Nothing. I mean, there were times where I was like, wait, what did this person just say? And I would be horrified, but I would also be like kind of impressed that they could get that in there. So, silence for 24 hours. Have a great rest of your day. Everybody, have a great rest of your day. Yes, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. We'll be back on Tuesday this week. We'll get the homepage finished. We're going to get the responsive stuff figured out. I have no doubt in my mind that between Tuesday and Thursday this next week, we will be done with the homepage and starting the inner pages. So stick around for that. Okay, everybody, stay warm, stay safe, have a great weekend, and I will see you on Tuesday. Bye-bye.